morning, everybody. We might have some people trickling in, but I'm Beth Weatherford. I'm actually the school psychologist here at Harper Park. I share an office with Ms. Harper and our social worker called the Oasis. I'm actually also the restorative practice lead in Leesburg, so I'm going to explain about what all of that is. But this is actually a topic that has been on my radar for about 4 or 5 years now. And it really has had such a great impact in a lot of our schools. And I've been doing some talks with parents and bus drivers, actually. They find it very helpful. So I'm just going to begin with, so restorative practice is really just a framework for building communities and for responding to challenging behaviors through dialogue and coming to an understanding and making things right. We do this within the school system if we have conflict between students. Sometimes we'll come together for conferences, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. So we're kind of trying to shift our framework into having kids solve their own problems versus us solving it for them. So it's kind of teaching some independence. Look here. So what it is, it's repairing harm. It's an alternate to traditional discipline. So sometimes we may have students who get into altercations at school, and instead of suspending them for 4 or 5 days, we bring them together, see if they can repair their harm, and they can move forward. It doesn't take place necessarily of just discipline per se, because we want our kids to stay in our buildings. We don't want them to be suspended. That's how this all came about. But it's also about building empathy and impact of their behavior, and this really does translate into life skills. Oops, sorry. So restorative practices is a continuum from the informal to formal. Informal is what we're really going to be talking about, effective statements, questions, small impromptu conferences, and then we do group or circle and formal conferences within the school setting. We're doing all of this within the schools, but our biggest focus has traditionally been that formal piece. This year at Harper Park, we're really starting to implement more of the middle ground. We're actually implementing circles in classrooms. I'm going to show you what that's going to look like. Ms. Harper and I do a lot of circles in classrooms that have maybe some underlying behavioral problems, lack of respect. We've been in several self-contained classes. We've been in large group classes. And it's really just to build that sense of community, because we have found that when kids are in a community, they're more willing to do the work. They're more willing to put forth their effort. When you feel part of a group, you tend to have decreased behavior problems, increased work. And we have actually found that to happen in many of our classes. So I'm going to get into what these are. So restorative language is basically addressing the conflict and then repairing harm. Effective statements are your expressions in response to other people's negative behavior. So we're going to talk about those. It's really important because I personally feel like in our society these days we don't do a lot of communicating anymore. There's a lot of texting, email, even that's gone away. It's like that short little text. There's a lack of conversation. There's lack of eye contact. And when we do restorative practices, when we do our circles, when we do these, the way we talk with our children, there's a lot more eye contact. So when we're in a classroom and we're doing a circle, there's no electronics out. There's no Chromebooks. You are looking at somebody. And it's uncomfortable at first for some of the kids. But once they get into it, it really does increase their behavior. And we all approach conflict very differently. I know I do. I mean, I know that I approach it very different than my husband. So, we all have different ways that we can come about focusing on what we're doing, but it really does encourage people to share their perspectives and feelings. So when we're using those effective statements, what we're doing is we're basically talking to the person, describing the harm, describing how it's affected us, and then offering support. And I'm going to get to some specifics here. I did this talk briefly with, like I said, the bus drivers, and we talked about respectful communication, and they were like, gosh, this is so great. Like, I need to remember that because it gets so flustered. And so respectful communication really is that neutral facial expressions, don't roll your eyes, the non-sarcastic tone of voice, because sometimes when we get heated, we can be a little sarcastic. Raise your voice, kind of try to lower it. Use I statements. this one is big, is breathe before you speak. And I really try to practice that with my own children. I'm much better with your children than I am with my own. And state your expectations. So what we'll say is like, I'm feeling very frustrated because you are not cleaning your bedroom. I need you to please go pick up the clothes. So you're talking about how their behavior is making you feel versus you're saying, I need you to go do this right now. My son would be like, why? So having that explanation, putting it in impact of how it's feeling, how you're feeling, how their actions are hurting you and why, tends to help go, oh, okay, so when I do this, my mom gets frustrated. I get that. So a lot of times we can change some of those, stop yelling to, I feel mad when you, because. And it takes a lot of practice because it sounds very scripted at first, but it does become more natural. I tend to like, not that one. These are the questions that I think is more impactful. And these are the questions that we talk about tell me what happened, tell me who's impacted, how are you impacted, and what are you going to do, or what are we going to do to move forward. There's more things on there, but you think about what you're saying is what happened, so that's the past. What's going on right now, that's the present. And what are you going to do to make it better, that's the future. So when we're talking to students or our own children, I personally have a tendency to be like, why'd you do that? What were you thinking? And my kids look at me like I wasn't thinking, I'm 10. So really you have to get more specific. So what was happening? What was happening when you did such and such? Tell me about what impact that you think this has. And once these kids get into it, they start learning, and what they're doing is that they're learning that their behavior is impacting others. We've had situations where when we come together, and we've had bullying situations, and the students are coming together, and we go through these questions. And these questions, everybody gets a chance to say these questions, so everybody gets their point of view told, and that you have to listen to them. And you start realizing that there's actually an impact when you're sitting there having to tell another student or an adult what you did. And that it can be very embarrassing. I'll tell you, it's harder for a student to sit there and talk about the things that they've done wrong versus just getting a consequence, lunch detention. It's much more difficult to really acknowledge that there has been harm done, that you are part of that harm, and that harm that's impacting others. And these questions can actually get pretty emotional for some kids because sometimes we just assume that they're just not coming to school. But when we sit down and have a conversation about what's happening, you realize maybe mom's sick. You maybe realize that, there's no electricity, that they have to stay home to watch their siblings. So there's a lot more information we can get from this, and it can be used in your home. Just taking a minute, taking that deep breath, taking a step back, and just instead of reacting, step back and say, what's happening? Really have that conversation, what's happening. Because it's so easy, I know for me, it's so easy just to be like, I just need to know and go move on. Like, I don't have time for this. But really what we're doing here is we're teaching our students life skills of really how to communicate with others, how to take responsibility for their actions, and not having the adults in their life solving their problems for them. And that's really what we're trying to do, especially at the middle school level. We're really trying to get these kids to problem solve on their own without the adults in the building telling them what to do. We are going to actually start circles here on Monday mornings at Harper Park. So I'm going to show you what that's going to look like if I can get out of here. This is just an example. And I don't know if you've been getting our newsletters from the Unified Mental Health Team. Okay, so that's our big push this year, is to really take this restorative language into the building, community building circles. We want our kids to feel like they are part of a community, that they have an adult they can talk to. We're getting so disconnected that we're really trying to bring them all back together. And I know our 6th grade team is really excited. And in January, I am training 12 staff members on community building circles and how that impact can be in your classroom. So we are starting Monday morning, just kind of a check-in. But this is what a circle could look like in a middle school. And then I'm going to answer questions I have. All right, how do I get out of here? Do you know, Ashley?
We're going to exit out of your PowerPoint.
Escape. Sorry. I can sit and talk to you, but I'm not going to act this out. It's not working.
Do you have it up on your screen?
Yes. I blame map testing.
Right. The network's down.
See?
Now it's all gone.
What? Why did you do that? Any questions? Right there. What are you looking for?
I'm trying to get it so it's.
Whatever you did, something just happened.
Nope.
It was just the PowerPoint.
And then it just, didn't come back.
Where's the video?
Here.
This needs to go away. I don't know. Anybody know?
Escape's not working. Here, do this. Let me see.
Control, delete, and then turn it back on. Not shut it down.
There we go.
What'd you do?
I closed out one of them. Okay, so on Mondays, what we're going to do is we're starting in the homeroom. And there was questions about why the homeroom. I'm like, why not? You see these kids every day. So it's just going to be simple things about how's the weekend, building the community, and let's see if I can get this one to play. So this is what it looks like in, I believe.
Is that something that value that this group has?
At Centennial Campus Magnet Middle School, students start their day every day talking with each other in a community circle.
I feel like I can trust my classmates more, and we do it like first thing in the morning, so if you had like a rough morning at home or something, then it like calms you down. And a lot of the times people like say stuff in circle to make you laugh.
Takes my mind off of bad things and relieves stress.
The beginning of the day is really a critical time for young people coming to school. They're bringing whatever they've experienced either over the weekend or overnight, and teachers being able to have that perspective at the beginning of the classroom is really good.
Students join their teachers, administrators, even school resource officers to form a circle. There's a designated talking piece that you have to be holding in order to talk. They spend 20 minutes every day talking about their feelings, hopes, dreams, and concerns, whatever the group wants to talk about. And they end up creating a community and respect for each other in the process.
I just learned something new about every person in the class every day, and it does help me understand them and the way they act and think.
I have used circle work for the last 20 years in my teaching, and I believe that it builds community, a safe space for my kids to be, to function and to learn. And it brings out strengths, weaknesses of kids, and understanding. It helps kids get along, helps them with their academics, particularly teenagers who are really having challenging times. I've seen a great benefit to this process. They're able to communicate with their needs and feel safe about that and not be judged. So if that's the case, then I can help that.
There's research behind these restorative practices that indicates that there's a decrease in out-of-school suspension, discipline issues, attendance issues, and really improves the school climate and creates an opportunity for young people to be able to feel like, you know, they are needed in school and that they are valued in their classrooms. If you feel valued, if you feel like you're part of the community, then you're less likely to be disruptive. You know, if you think about that, if you feel like people value your opinion, that you have relationships with your teachers and your classmates, then you're less likely to behave in a negative manner. So restorative practices and particularly the community circles help students to develop pro-social behavior, so they learn to control their emotions, they learn how to have positive relationships with one another, and all of those things contribute to success in the classroom.
In circle, it seems like everyone's like a different person when you learn more about them.
Community circle makes me feel happy and energized.
The best way to start a successful day at school, because what starts here changes everything.
So your kids are going to watch this video on, not this coming Monday, no, actually next Wednesday during advisory. And what we're going to have is we're going to have very scripted just questions for the teachers to ask, things like, would you rather go to the beach or the mountains? And then everyone gets to, we pass around a talking piece, everyone gets to answer, and then the next question is like, why? So then they get to go around and talk, and they're going to find commonalities between kids that they've never known before, that they didn't know, because these homeroom kids see each other every day. So we're really hoping that that does bring a nice sense of community. And I want to go back to the slides about feelings, because I know I skipped over, but I do want to talk about it. Make sure this is going to happen. Oh boy. I'm sorry. I do want to go back to the feeling slide though, if I can get this out of here, because I feel. I'm just going to leave it like this if it doesn't work. If this is okay with you guys, until I get someone to fix it. Let's go back up to. Let's go back to this a little bit more. When we talk about restorative language and why it's so important, really the focus is on the actions, not the person. So we have kids that tend to get in trouble a lot. A lot of it, many times, it's out of their control, and then they start feeling like I'm the bad kid. But when we can start talking about just their behavior, it's not about who they are as a being, it's about their actions, and then changing those actions. So it's okay to talk about feelings and emotions, and I think that in our society, we tend to stop talking about those things, that it might not be okay. But what we're trying to teach our children is that it is okay, and that our actions do lead to feelings and emotions. We all come from a very different place, because what we're trying to teach them and what we try to keep perspective is their background is very different than our background. Their life experience is very different than my life experience. Everybody comes to the table with something to give to other people. And then there are times that someone's actions, you might not think there's anything wrong with it, but somebody else may take huge offense to it, or may have had trauma in their lives. And you're not going to know why it's so impactful until you actually sit down and ask these questions. So it doesn't protect them from consequences, and we learn from consequences. Natural consequences is a very powerful tool. And I think that sometimes we tend to get away from that, and sometimes it's okay for a natural consequence to occur, because that is how we learn. And it's really, like I said, focusing on the behavior and not the worth of the person. And you would be amazed at the things your children will tell you if you actually sit down and take a moment and actually have a conversation about, well, what happened? How were you feeling? What were you thinking? And what do you think you can do to make things right or make things better? And you'd be surprised. That's what we have. Darn it. We see kids that come up with solutions that I would have never thought of. And they just have so much more to share, especially at this middle school level. They're so moldable at this age that once they get to high school, we can still do some work, but it's almost like they're almost off a little bit. Here, they're still contained. We can still really try to make such a positive impact on them. And that can carry over to your home. Just using that simple language, offering that support, describing, like I said, how it's affecting you. Because that's really important that they understand that their behavior is affecting other people, that it's not just them. Their actions have consequences. In my neighborhood, we had an issue with speeding. And one of the teenagers was my friend's son. And at the time, my son was probably 5, 6, and he's impulsive. He likes to play outside. He likes to play in the front yard. Well, my friend's son would drive down the street really fast, texting, not looking. So I finally said to her, I said, look, let's have a conversation. So we sat down, myself, my friend, her son, my son, and basically I let my son say that his driving so fast and texting scares him. And I got to say why I was afraid that my child would be hit. And it was very impactful because he wasn't thinking beyond the texting and driving. He wasn't thinking about, oh my gosh, I could hit a kid. He's a high school kid, of course not. But sitting down and listening to a little boy tell you that was very impactful. Did he not always speak? Still spell a little bit, but he definitely was a lot more conscious, I believe, of it for just having that conversation. And then with these feeling words, we always get like, oh, I don't want to talk about feelings. But I did this activity with several different adults and children. Everybody, it's so easy to talk about you're glad when, you're mad when. It really gets a lot harder when you're really getting down into what makes you sad, what scares you. These are things like, for your children, it really scares me when you're on the, playing your games at midnight and I don't know who you're talking to. That scares me. And they're like, what? And then, of course, you talk about all the dangers of the internet. But I feel like when you can put your own emotions onto the impact of their behavior, it really does start to make a change, and you will really start seeing some results. I really do feel that. So that's the one that was harmed. We went over that. Do you guys have any questions yet? Because I can still talk forever about it.
So the last slide about
yes,
I feel or
yes,
makes me feel.
Yeah.
This is like in a parenting home situation. This would be like the parent saying that their behavior, this is how it makes them feel, or
this would
asking
be
the child?
This would be when they're you're saying, I feel scared when you are on the internet all night because it can be very dangerous. I need you to turn it off, or like I use the example of like I need you to clean your bathroom because it's disgusting, or I feel upset when you leave your towel on the ground because it can get moldy and stink. So it's a lot of putting that emotion back into it, and it does help for them to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I see why that matters, versus just pick up your towel. So it takes a lot of practice. It takes some slowing down. And what I find that it does for me as a parent is it makes me stop and think for a minute before I react, because I've been known to overreact sometimes. I'm sure I'm the only one in here that gets really upset at their children. So it does let me take a minute to just really try to take a moment, take a deep breath, and come back to it. I use this with a lot of our kids here in the building. A lot of those restorative questions we use with our kids every day. And my room is what's called the Oasis, is where the Unified Mental Health Team, part of us are. And we do these questions. We do a lot of like, what happened? Versus a teacher that's sending them out of the classroom, they come in here, we're like, what happened? And then we find out so-and-so was teasing them. Teacher didn't see it, so of course they were acting out. So it's just asking those questions. It's really just having an open dialogue that really lends you to learning more about these students. Does that make sense? Any questions? Any useful information? I could, let's see what other questions I have. I can give you more examples. This is for the wrongdoer, which we said, like, what have you thought about since? So, like I said before, we're always talking about the past, the present, and the future. So what happened then, what's going on right now, and then what can you do to make things better? And it's, like I said, it's a lot of having your children solve their problems and really taking ownership of their behavior. That's where the change really occurs. And then we're doing the circles here at Harbor Park. Do you have any questions?
So what is the, I guess, how open or how much communication is there between students? Like, I guess I think about, I have a child who doesn't communicate. I mean, she communicates with her friends, out,
right.
Not in a formal setting, but will not communicate at home. And so when I look at the community circles, I think, oh, that looks like a great idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, are the kids likely to actually engage?
You would be surprised.
Okay.
I will tell you, yes. Here's, in my experience, absolutely. But what it takes, though, they're allowed to pass. You know, if they're in the circle, they want to pass, they can pass. It's up to the leader to go back to them, because then they might feel more comfortable talking after they've heard people talk. The whole point of the circle is that you have a talking piece. Everyone's equal, including the adults. So we sit with the kids when we do our circles. And we always start with something funny, something easy, and we'll do it. We had a situation where we have several kids that are being disrespectful in this class that meets every day. So what Ms. Harper and I have done is we go into the class and we do our circle. We just start with something fun, you know, like what's your favorite ice cream? And then we'll go into things like, what does respect mean to you? So the kids get to voice what they feel respect is. The teacher gets to share what she feels respect is. And then we'll say, you know, are there any times where you feel disrespected? You don't have to talk about it, but do you feel disrespected in this class? And you would be surprised what they would say. A lot of them, they'll say yes or they'll say no, and usually it's the ones that say no are the ones that are doing the deed. So they're being disrespectful. But those quiet kids, the best part about the circle with those quiet kids is that talking piece that allows them a voice so they feel more comfortable once everyone starts. I find it very rarely that I have kids passing every time. If they do, they're a little bit more defiant than anything else. Because it's supposed to be a neutral, happy, like safe environment where you're allowed to share. I have lots of videos that I can show you, but I've done it in elementary schools, high schools, do it after crisis. It's a really impactful way of just sharing emotions and just sharing life experiences. So I'm hoping your daughter will. 6th grade? Okay. I'm going to have to look around now. Always send her my name. She's got a great counselor too, so it's all good. No, I'm the psychologist. Yeah. I'm the psychologist. No, the counselor is doing map testing right now. Yeah, but that's really all I have. I mean, I'm happy to sit here and talk and answer questions and anything else.
Is there any way you assess the impact of the sectional? I mean, like, go back and see whatever is being discussed and the effect of.
Yes, actually, I do, because I use it for progress monitoring through our system, but a lot of times, honestly, it goes back to, is the teacher seeing an improvement? Is there an improvement in grades? Is there an improvement in behavior? And we go back in, a lot of times we don't just go in and do one circle, we'll come back weekly. The whole point of getting our staff trained is that this is something they can do all the time. For example, last year we had a smaller self-contained class in 8th grade, and there were a lot of behavioral problems. And this teacher was like, okay, you know, I've done everything, so I'm willing. So Ms. Harper and I went in weekly and did community building circles with him to the point that he started then teaching in the circle. He started doing it every morning in the classroom. And the behavior decreased and their grades increased. There was a direct correlation to just that building of community to the increase in positive experiences. Yeah, and I have a lot of it's from teachers who are like, thank you so much, it's so much better. Or they'll be like, you need to come back in and we need a little check-in circle. So we'll do that, yeah.
So who decides on what to discuss, what to talk about?
It depends on what's going on.
Okay.
And especially like when we're doing our Monday circles now, it's going to be just getting to know you type things. It's just going to be like, you know, where were you born? And like everyone getting to answer. Or where's your favorite place to go? What's your favorite food? Just stuff to start getting them talking to each other versus on their devices. We only do some of those harder questions when you've got a trained facilitator and there's like a target behavior you're really looking at. Yeah, so we won't be asking these kids on a Monday morning, you know, what's your deepest, darkest secrets? That won't occur. Because I'd be afraid of what they'd say. Okay.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going. I'm like, okay, with more of the general, like getting to know you know, that's one thing, but I was really more thinking about, you know, the getting down to the feelings and.
Well, I will tell you, we do that more though in groups. So, like, we'll run small groups here, and a lot of our group framework has started to shift to that, where there's a lot more of the one person at a time. We have a skill that we're trying to learn. So when we do community building circles, it's just about how are you? Are you ready? What are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How ready are you to learn? Someone says 10, great. Someone says a 2. Well, you can follow back up with that student later and go, why were you a 2? You know, what's going on? So you don't have to call them out in front of everybody, but having that conversation of just kind of gauging where everyone is that day can help.
Could you say more about the advisory? So it's every Wednesday or every other Wednesday that they get advisory?
Wednesdays.
Okay.
Every Wednesday.
And it's in homeroom, right?
No, advisories are not. Advisories are in which block?
They're in 8th block. So we've had an advisory. Katie Johnson, one of the APs here. So we've run an advisory program many different ways here at Harper Park, and we just elicited some student feedback and teacher feedback. And what they really said is we want our advisory group to be a class that we already have with the teacher. We have that connection. So we just looked at our master schedule and looked to see when most teachers were teaching, what block had the least teachers that had planning, and it ended up being 8th block. So it happens every Wednesday. We're on a different schedule, and it's the second block of the day. That's what's kind of crazy. So basically, think of it as the whole school at about 10:05 stops, and every kid goes to their advisory session, and that person just happens to be their 8th block teacher. So it's someone they already have a connection with, and that's where we do a lot of our character building lessons and a lot of community building in that block, and it follows different themes. But that's our advisory, and so it's every single Wednesday with a teacher that they already have a relationship with.
And there's one Wednesday a month where we focus on, I'm part of the committee, where we focus on, we call it like mental health Wednesdays, wellness Wednesdays. So we'll focus on some sort of skills like next what are we doing in December? We're doing,
holiday stress.
Thank you, this is my intern Katie. We're talking about holiday stress and strategies, so that's also going to go out in the parent newsletter. And something fun we're doing is we are actually having the kids do cards this year, holiday cards during advisory, and each grade level sending it somewhere different. So 6th grade is going, I think, to assisted living facilities. 7th grade is going to children's hospitals, and 8th grade is going to veterans. So it's going to go to the centers. Yeah, right?
Really awesome.
So that will be one of their advisory lessons. We're doing a lot more just community stuff, like trying to show the positives. Really, their kids are so resilient that I want us to really focus on those positive behaviors versus just the negative behaviors. So we're really trying to, because I think we lose so many kids when we're just focusing on negative that we're not catching those kids that are the really good kids who need help too. You know, who do need some self-esteem boosts. They're the quiet ones that you won't know what's going on. When we do this, you can kind of see that there's more out there. So yeah, but I loved our advisories. They've been really good. And so the Monday is the Monday morning check-in.
Okay.
And that's just getting together in a circle, just checking in to see how the kids are, to get a gauge of the kids, to get them feel like they're part of the community again before they start their week. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I come to the holiday stress advisory?
You'll get some in your newsletter. I know,
Can I
right?
get some tips on that?
Well, we are going to send some tips on that in our newsletter. Actually, my intern does a lot of the newsletter stuff, so she's done a great job with that.
So is the newsletter that you referenced earlier, is that different than the one that comes out like Sunday night or the mid?
This is the Unified Mental Health Team newsletter. Comes out once a month. Did you not get that? How does it go out?
It's through Naviance.
Naviance?
We can look into that if it's not getting where it needs to go. So
Absolutely.
Mrs. Robinson, our principal, sends one every Sunday, which just kind of has the upcoming events for the week.
This is
But
different.
there is one through the Unified Mental Health Team. So if that's not something you're seeing, we'll make sure that we can try
And
and
it's
send
on our,
it a different way.
is it on our website too? Right?
It should be.
Yeah, let me see.
And while you're looking at that, I just want to do another plug.
Yes.
If anybody needs to get on Parent View still, that they don't have access to Parent View to look at grades and things like that, please stay after the session, and Ms. Bartlett's going to help you get online if you need access to Parent View. She's right there. She will be happy to help you.
Let's see if I can find it.
I guess a question I have about what is the difference between, or what different information is there between what we can see on Parent View and like what is in, like I've gone through and like clicked on assignments or whatever, looked at that view of Parent View, but then like on Google Drive, like what the kids see, like what is that the same information?
So
Is it different?
the way we kind of think about it is Parent View is our communication tool to parents of how, what assignments are due, the grades and things like that. Google Classroom, kind of think about as like that's the kids or the teacher's instructional tool that they're using in the classroom. So that's kind of where they're doing their work per se, but for parents, we want the communication to be coming through parent view. Now there's a way to link those. I am not an expert. I know that there's been some glitches this year. They've made some changes in Google actually, where there was better, our teachers feel like the access was a little bit better last year for parents to get into Google Classroom. They've made some changes, but some teachers do have those linked. So really, our thought is the kids should be using Google Classroom to do their work, and then parent view should be communicating kind of how they're doing on their work. Now, if your kid wants to take you into Google Classroom and say, hey, here's what it is, that's fine, but I don't think right now, because it's been a change in Google, I don't know that there's the ability for them to add you as a guardian in Google Classroom. There used to be, and Google has removed that feature, but that may go back. So trying to think of it as parent view's your thing and Google Classroom's their thing. Now, I'm telling you though, that shouldn't stop you from saying to your kid, show me what's going on in Google Classroom. What are you working on? You know, be as involved as you can at this age. You're gonna think, oh my gosh, they're in middle school, let me step back. No, they need you. They are making, you know, they're kind of hit with things that are for a lot of mature topics, and for them, this is the age where they really do need you because they're going in a million different directions. And even though they're telling you to stay away, no, you really need to be as involved as you can at this point.
I can't find it on here.
They're still little kids. Like I know you think like they're older, they're still little kids. So that's kind of how I think of it in my head. Is the Google Classroom's more for the instructional piece and the parent view is for the communication piece. But yeah, feel free to email a teacher if you feel like you're not sure what's going on, and please reach out to them. I know you know that they have 150 kids and they do their best to communicate. But if you email them that you have a concern, they'll get back to you and help you.
And I don't have a concern. I just it's kind of that gap between elementary school and middle school. Because my child is not quiet, by the way. It is more of a defiant, I'm not going to talk to you kind of thing. So just be clear.
Oh, she'll be good. She'll be fine.
But I do get that.
Right.
Like,
how was school? Fine. Right. Did you do nothing?
I don't have. What do you have for homework? I did it in resource. Okay, so you don't have homework again? I'm like, you did all of your homework in resource. Right. So I just feel like there's no, and it's probably a little control thing that I have to let go of. But I'm just trying to find the balance between looking to see what the work is, because I don't get the papers that come home every day like I used to. They used to pile up on my island, but which I'm grateful for. But now I feel like, okay, I can't really see what it is that they're that she's doing, and so I'm just trying to not even though I am getting it too on.
You don't want to
I'm trying to okay, can I just get a little bit closer to what you're doing?
I will say we don't give a ton of homework. We really do not. Most of the time for language arts, it's just going to be to read for 30 minutes or so. Probably see most of the homework in math. It will step up as they move through the grades. So there's a lot of research out there that says homework does not have the impact that we thought it once had. They typically say for 6th grade you should have 60 minutes a day, 7th grade 70 minutes, 8th grade 80 minutes, but they do have that resource block. Like we said, there's not a lot, but it's also 45 minutes, and if you think by the time they get their head in the game and get situated, it's probably only a half an hour. So there's a chance they could get their work done. There's also, I know that doesn't really give you a great answer. In 8th grade, it really does step up though, because they will have an SOL in every subject. They'll have 2 in English, they'll have 5. So in 8th grade, expect to see a lot more. I know. 8th grade is like, it just, and I think too, as kids mature through middle school, the expectations are going to get greater, and they're really thinking about, okay, how am I going to transition to high school? And we always say we're not the farm team for Heritage, but we also do need to make sure that we're teaching them some of those skills. It's a delicate balance, but middle school is so much fun. We love it.
The difference between 6th and 8th grade is crazy different. And to see them when they come in as little 6th graders, like they're so cute. They're leaving. They're like, oh my goodness, yeah, you're ready. Goodbye. Go to high school. We're done with you. Go on. So this is our newsletter. Yeah, it's also on our website under school counseling. So this was November's was physical health and mental wellness, and our team is listed over here. Oh, Ashley Frost, our social worker, who's right here. We need to change your name. She just got married. And all of our counselors. Then we try to have like tips, and then just talk about physical health, exercises.
So that was on the website?
It is on the website under school counseling, and then it's under unified mental health team. But it goes out through Naviance.
So we'll ask Miss Harper to just check that.
Yeah, and we have lots of resources on there too.
So when you say it goes, I don't know what Naviance is. So like in our email,
It's an email. It'll come to you in an email.
So but that's like Naviance.org or something. I mean, like not.
Yeah.
Or would it come from Harper Park?
Usually, when Miss Harper sends it out, it'll say Ashley Harper. Ashley Harper's our lead counselor. That would be the person it would be from.
Okay.
But I'll ask her. I'm assuming she might just say no. I put it on the website.
Okay.
When you get.
Has anybody else gotten it? Am I the only person who hasn't got it?
I know. And the other one comes from like Harper Park, like all in capitals, right? When you get the Connect Ed, that's called the Connect Ed program. When that comes out, the weekly newsletters, that all capital one. Yeah. They're just two different programs, but maybe we could send them from the same program so that there's no concerns or issues.
Thanks for.
I'm sorry to hijack your meeting.
No, we were done. We were just conversing. Thanks.
The email does go out.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anything else? You guys are welcome to stop by our room, see where the Unified Mental Health Team, the hub is. We're in Computer Lab 3. So yeah, we're excited. We've got a lot of things planned this year for Harper Park, so we're really excited. Really trying to promote that positive. So yeah, thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Around
That's okay. I prefer you have a question.
So, because you just mentioned, you just triggered when you said that's a counseling thing, not a psychology thing. So what is you all's role versus the counselors?
That's a really good question. My role as the school psychologist is, number one, my primary